Well, Houston goes out there and they set up for a 2 point conversion. But my oh my, did they not kneel the ball? Oh no, sir. Oh no. No, the Texans, with the number one pick in the NFL draft on the line, goes out there on a 2 point conversion to win the freaking game and gift wrap the Bears that pick. They go out there and they convert. They get the 2 points. They win the freaking game, and now the Texans have the number two pick. So, shout out to them. I guess you won. Yay! Yay! Like I don't know what to say. Welcome back to the most unprofessional sports podcast in the world. I am your host, Zach Circleberg Burkle, here with my co-hosts Aaron and Siege. Go ahead and say hi, guys.
How's it going?
What's up? What's up?
All right, and before we get this episode started, I just want to remind anybody watching to like and subscribe if you enjoy our content. We're hoping to come out with more in the future, obviously, and try to keep this train rolling. So let's go ahead and get into this week's stuff. Start off with some college football. Probably the last time we'll talk about that for a while. Start with the national championship game, which did not live up to most people's expectations, I'm sure. And I'll just go ahead and throw the mic over to you, Siege, and let you as a TCU fan, go ahead and get whatever you want off your chest.
Yeah, well, obviously it didn't go down as expected. Well, I mean, maybe not to be expected, but wasn't as tight of a game as people were expecting it to be. One thing I'll say is TCU's getting like a lot of flack for getting ousted by Georgia, like just absolutely steamrolled. But although, I mean, they deservedly so for getting steamrolled the way that they did. Um, but everybody's saying that Alabama should have got in instead of TCU. Alabama shouldn't have lost two games. That's simple as that. Leave the conversation. That's the conversation right there. Um, the issue with the 4 team playoff is exactly what we kind of saw in this national championship game. A TCU team that has never been to the playoff. They take care of business in game one against a pretty good Michigan team. And then they just get outmatched against Georgia. Where if you have expanded playoff, some of these teams that may not have the talent to match up with these super stacked teams like Georgia with their 50 future NFL players on their roster, they kind of get weeded out throughout that process of a larger playoff, I think. So that's one positive to a larger playoff. Another positive is you'll see some more of these teams like TCU get a chance to play for a national championship. So I think the expanded playoff will be good in the future, just so that maybe we won't necessarily see a scoreline like that again.
Yeah, it was a pretty bad beatdown by the Georgia Bulldogs. What was it, like 63-7 or something like that?
65.
65-7. Yeah, I mean, I honestly I completely forgot the game was even Monday, and then when I realized that it was like halfway through the game or whatever, I go to Bleacher Report, check to see the score, like, oh, is it a good game? As soon as I turn it on, it's like 35-7, and I'm just like, oh, I'm not gonna waste my time watching this game. Unfortunately, I was rooting for TCU during that contest, but just too overmatched against that Georgia Bulldogs team. Their offense and their defense both just dominated all game. The one thing that I've seen going around on social media a lot recently, and I just vehemently disagree with, um, is that TCU didn't deserve to be in the playoffs at all just because of that loss, and that just strikes me as really like closed mind. Like I don't know, they have a really short memory or something, because the first round on both sides of the bracket were incredible games that came down to the wire. especially in that Georgia Ohio State game. And I have noticed there's a lot of like either people with SEC bias or just Bama fans in general, basically yelling that they should have made it over TCU. And I just think that's a ridiculous statement to make, considering Bama, they don't even know if they would have made it past the first round to play Georgia in the championship, let alone beat Georgia. So I hate seeing people say that because like acting like TCU didn't deserve to be there because I just think that's completely incorrect and false. We saw two great games in the first round of the college football playoffs. Obviously, the championship did not live up to expectations. Um, but I don't think by any means that meant TCU didn't belong there. I mean, they beat Michigan to get there in the first place. That's got to count for something. Um, but what do you think, Aaron, as a guy who had Georgia going into this game, and I guess
As a guy who got faded going into this game by co-host.
fair enough. But as also like an SEC fan to an extent, being a Mizzou fan, me too. But you follow the sport a lot more than I do. What was your reaction to the chance for Bama to make it in over TCU after that championship game? Do you agree with that? Do you think those are ridiculous? I'm just kind of confused as to how losing in the championship game, like it'd be different if they lost in the semifinals. You know what I mean? But they won their semifinal game. They earned the right to play Georgia. So I'm just confused by these statements. I think it's just a bunch of butthurt Bama fans. What do you think?
That's part of it. And I'm sure some of the sentiment from them is, well, we play in the SEC. It's the best football conference with the toughest teams. But, I mean, that being said, I don't think TCU necessarily didn't earn the right to play in that game.
Right.
They showed all year that they were a good team, and I think they just didn't quite show up. Whatever it was, they were a little off, and I don't think anybody was expecting it to be that bad. Yeah, I don't. It doesn't really make sense to me that they don't deserve to be there. That argument is just kind of wild to me.
Yeah, yeah. Totally lost on me as well. I just don't. Again, if they would have lost like how Oklahoma did a couple of years ago, where they just got demolished in the first round by Clemson, then I would understand. Sure, make that argument. But they won their first game. They beat a very good Michigan team, like a very good Michigan team. A lot of people thought were better than TCU and were going to beat TCU. So I just think the argument that they didn't deserve to be there is just outrageous to me. Chalk a lot of it up to maybe the lights just being a little too bright for those guys down in Texas Christian University at Texas Christian University. But yeah, I don't know. It's sad to see people be upset over something like that when in the long run it probably wouldn't have mattered anyways. Uh, but let's go ahead and move on from that and go to maybe our predictions for 2023 college football. A little early to be talking about 2023 with the championship just wrapping up this week, but let's go ahead and get into our top five our predictions for the top five teams in college football for 2023. Obviously, a lot of turnover every year when it comes to college. Kids graduate, kids transfer, kids drop out if you want to go that route too. Um, but there are definitely some teams that were at the top this year that are going to remain at the top probably next year. One of those teams being Ohio State, in my opinion. They're my pick as of right now to be the number one team in the country next year. That's assuming CJ Stroud doesn't come back. If CJ Stroud does come back, then I think it's even more of a lock that Ohio State um, is the best team in the nation next year. But even with CJ Stroud coming back, I mean, they have seven offensive starters coming back. They have seven defensive starters coming back. One of those offensive starters includes Marvin Harrison Jr., arguably the greatest wide receiver in the country in college football right now. So that would be my pick as of like today to be the number one team in college football right now next year. What do you think, Siege? Who's your number one team coming out?
I think it has to be Georgia. I don't see Just because I think they're the new. I think they're the new standard. I think everybody's still. I mean, people still look at Alabama as being the standard, but I think Alabama is starting to not necessarily fall off, but fall behind the standard that Georgia is setting. Georgia's won back-to-back national championships. I don't know how you could knock them for winning another one and and keep them out of the number one spot. So I think they'll be number one heading into the next year. The other thing is um, with what was I trying to think or what was I trying to say? Uh, I forget. I don't know what I was gonna say. But the other thing is, like with the SEC, you can have two teams be in the top four all season, and then they have to play each other in the SEC championship because they don't play each other in the regular season. So and that's the case with like Georgia and Alabama. They could be number one and two all year, go play each other in the championship, and still be number one and two heading into the playoffs. So um, that being said, I don't think Alabama necessarily is my number two. I think Ohio State's probably my number two, and then Alabama following them up after that. But I have some hot takes for my four and five teams and teams on the bubble.
Okay, yeah, we'll get to that in a second. Just to, I guess, wrap up my top three then. I do have Georgia at number two, much for the same reason you said. Georgia is the standard right now, especially in the SEC. I just think that Ohio State was so close to beating them this year, and I believe they have more starters coming back. Yeah, they have more starters on both sides of the ball coming. Only one. They have seven as opposed to six for Georgia. So I guess that's the main reason I have Ohio State like jumping them is because it was so close this year, and they are bringing more starters back than Georgia is. But I do have Georgia slotted in there at number two, and then I have Bama at three as well. So our top three are the same, just in different order. What about you, Aaron? Who are your top three teams over there?
My top one is, I mean, obviously Georgia. Um, the counterpoint to kind of what Siege said, you can knock them for not necessarily not being the national champions, but for the impact of the players that they lose. But they brought in a lot of good commits, so I think they do deserve to stay at the one. And then my two is actually Alabama. Shocker, shocker, SEC bias here. And then I have Ohio State at three.
Okay, so we all three have the same top three teams. And yeah, I mean, I don't really see, as of right now, of course, a lot of things can change between now and then, but I don't see anybody else jump in those three teams. I know ESPN had Michigan as the number three team and Florida State as the number four, both above Alabama. I am assuming Jim Harbaugh is leaving. Um, but going off of the fact that he's still there and nothing is set in stone, I do have Michigan at number four going into next year. I think they could, even if Jim Harbaugh doesn't come back, still meet that expectation. JJ McCarthy's coming back. He was obviously a huge reason they were so successful this past year. They're also bringing back their running back Blake Corum. He decided he was going to return to Michigan this year as well. So it's very possible that we're going to see a very similar Michigan team next year that we saw this year, and that's why I have them slated in as number four, whether Jim Harbaugh comes back or not. I think Jim Harbaugh is the glue for that team, so I do think he makes a big difference. If he does come back, I think they could jump up even higher. If he doesn't come back, I think they could fall. Um, but I think they just in general have the talent to where they should be in the conversation for the playoffs next year, with or without Harbaugh. It's just I think Harbaugh is so important to that not franchise because it's a college team, but to that team that if he does leave, I could still see Michigan falling further back into like more um, irrelevant territory, I guess you could say. And then my number five, I have USC Trojans. A lot of people probably wouldn't like that take, but because Caleb Williams is coming back and they still have Lincoln Riley, I just think that offense is going to be so good that they could beat they could match scores with just about anybody, assuming the defense holds up. So I just have a lot of faith in that program over there as well. Lincoln Riley in his second year at USC should continue to develop those players, develop that team, make it a more competitive atmosphere. They haven't had a lot of competitiveness before Lincoln Riley. They're starting to get back, like since Reggie Bush days and the Matt Leinart days, but ever since Lincoln Riley stepped in as head coach at the beginning of the season, it seems like he has brought a whole new culture into that organization, and just really injected that whole team with some extra juice, I guess. So, Siege, let's hear your spicy takes for 4 and 5.
So my four is Michigan. I don't think. I mean, they're bringing back a lot of players. I don't think they're necessarily losing too much. So that's my number 4. My number 5, though, I have a lot of like bubble teams. I want to see what Tennessee can do with this new quarterback. He showed that he has what it takes in their bowl game. I mean, he was slinging the ball all over the place. I'm really excited to watch him next year. So I have like a group of teams that's Tennessee, USC, and this one might throw people off a little bit, but Florida State. Florida State. I mean, they went 10-3 this year. I have Florida State winning the ACC this upcoming year. I think that they're bringing in a lot of really good talent. I think that they will match up well against a Clemson team that is showing signs of falling off. That could have been just because of their quarterback play this year. But I think Florida State wins the ACC this year, and I think you might be surprised where they end up in the first poll that gets released before the season. I think they'll be in the top 10. One thing I want to touch on real quick, I don't think there's going to be a single Big 12 team that's inside the top 10 at the start of next year. The one that might be close is Kansas State, but I think the lowest team that you'll see is going to be in the mid to high teens for the Big 12. That sucks for me just because I'm a TCU fan and a Big 12 fan at heart, but yeah, I don't think any of the Big 12 teams will even have any respect after what happened in the national championship to be in the top 10 at the start of next year. So that'll be an interesting little deal to kind of look at.
Yeah, and just kind of backing up what you said. I mean, ESPN does have Florida State as the preseason, as of right now, as the number 4 ranked team going into next year. So your Florida State pick seems like it's a pretty solid one. And then also your Big 12 argument is also backed up by ESPN. Their highest ranking Big 12 team they have for next year is TCU at number 12. So both are very likely to happen. I don't know much about Florida State or the Big 12 or really college football in general. I'm kind of talking out my ass right now. So
is that the way too early poll that you're looking at?
Yes,
okay, I didn't get a chance to look at that. I didn't even know that they posted that.
Yeah, they literally just posted, I think, yesterday, maybe today.
Okay, so that's not. Yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah, they posted yesterday. But what about you, Aaron? Who's your 4 and 5?
4, kind of fairly standard. Michigan, like Siege said, they're bringing a lot of crucial pieces back. I do think a lot of it kind of hinges on whether Harbaugh comes back or not. Yeah, just kind of standard there. But then, like Siege, I do have a couple of bubble teams. One of them being LSU. They kind of struggled early on in the season last year, but Brian Kelly really turned it around. They finished strong, and I believe we're like quote unquote kind of in the college football playoff, but not really conversation. Another one is USD. Caleb Williams coming back. That's big for them. They're explosive. They could easily win the Pac-12 over there. And then Tennessee's another one that would be exciting to see. Like if they can build on the momentum that they had last year.
Yeah, sorry, I'm doing the Brian Kelly dance over here for when he recruits players. But no, Tennessee. You both mentioned Tennessee. Tennessee was one I thought about pushing up a little further, maybe making them my number five. I think the only reason I picked USC over them was because of the consistency of the quarterback coming back, Caleb Williams coming back and leading that unit for the second straight year, along with his head coach who he's had for going into his third straight year. So that's the only reason I had USC over uh, Tennessee. But Tennessee was another team I thought about. Excuse me, jeez. Tennessee was another team I thought about sliding up to the top five, or at least kind of like both you said, they're kind of on the bubble, like 7, 8, 6, 7, 8 spot for me. So yeah, I don't know if there's really anything else we can talk about with college football. I mean,
I have a question kind of geared towards Siege here.
Okay, okay.
What do we think about Texas? I mean, they got Arch Manning. Do we think he'll redshirt, or you think he'll play for his first year?
That's a good question.
I think after the year that they have a very serious quarterback battle in the spring. I think is he early enrollee? Do we know?
I don't know.
I want to say I saw that he's enrolling early, but so I think you have a very intense quarterback battle to see who gets the starting job. I don't see the upside of necessarily. I mean, if he loses the job, obviously, I think there's an upside to redshirting him. But then again, if you redshirt him, maybe he leaves. Who knows? I mean, you never know with the transfer portal these days. If kids aren't getting an immediate starting role, they could just dip out on you, and you just don't. I mean, you can't do anything about it. So um, it'll be interesting to see. I think Texas. I think their system would work really well if they had him at the helm because he's very sold on being a pocket quarterback, and Texas has really good running backs usually. I mean, historically they have really good running backs. So I think that a pocket quarterback would suit their needs well, and him just like committing to that role as opposed to Hudson Card, and he's like, yeah, I want to throw the ball, I want to be a pocket quarterback, but I'm also gonna like scramble out of the pocket a little bit, and then I don't know. I think it would be good for their system if he started, but I don't know. Only time will tell, I guess.
Do we think they could end up being like a top 10 team next year?
No, I think they're overrated all year or every year.
Yeah.
Um, ever since,
Hey, but they're back.
well, yeah, ever since he said, who said that again?
Sam Allen.
Sam Ellinger?
Again, after he
Yeah.
beat, I think it was was it when he beat us in the Texas Bowl, or was it the year after?
Top.
No, he said it probably at the beginning of the season.
No, it was
I don't
after they
even
won a bowl
remember.
game, but whatever, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but ever since then, like they haven't been able to do anything. They're always overrated at the beginning of the year, and they play down to the level of their competition too. Like the usually the games that they play the best is when they're playing OU, and that's their biggest rivalry
Yeah.
game of the year.
The old rival.
So I don't know. They kind of do the thing where they play down to the competition and don't play their game like they should, and use what they're good at to beat teams. And so I don't know. I don't think they'll end up as a top 10 team next year.
Yeah, I just remember Sam Allinger after winning a bowl game. I can't remember what bowl game it was, but I just remember him being like, "We're back," and then they weren't. So I don't know. I guess my question to you was like my follow up, but you kind of answered it already. Was that if Arch were to redshirt his freshman year, would he consider leaving? But I mean, I guess that's all only up to him to decide. And you kind of already hinted on that, so you never know with those kind of kids, especially the ones that are kind of propped up from a young age to be the guy.
Yeah.
If he's not the guy from day one, it could be interesting to see where if he may consider transferring,
Yeah, and
especially if he promises anything.
there's one more notable point. His like visit was during the TCU game. So TCU beats Texas. I think Arch might have seen that as okay. I have a chance to immediately start and make an impact on this team, as opposed to maybe like, oh, they're not very good. Maybe I should shop elsewhere. I think he's seeing it as he has a chance to make an immediate impact as a freshman on this team,
Right.
and that's why he's so set on going to Texas. And so I think that's an interesting thing too, because if he sees it as a chance to be on the field as a freshman, then he's going to take that and run with it and put as much effort to get that job as he possibly can. So I'm excited to watch him play, and hopefully he lives up to his name down there. I don't like Texas, but I mean, I don't have any hard feelings towards the Mannings as a whole. So I hope he does well. But yeah, I don't see them finishing in the top 10 next year necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, or maybe he was looking at that game like, ooh, redshirt year at Texas, and then go lead TCU to a national championship against Georgia. I don't know, but who knows? Who knows what he was thinking? You know. But I guess we can, unless you have anything else to add, Aaron, we can move on from college football to the pros. But do you have anything? Either of you have anything else to add to that discussion?
No, I think we covered it pretty much.
All right, all right. So yeah, I guess we all four kind of, or we all three kind of had the same top four, just in different order in the top three. And then with that five, we were all looking at the same teams for that five spot. It's just some of us had one team, some of us had another. But enough college football. Let's go ahead and move on to the NFL. Starting with before we get into the 2 minute warning, tradition around here. Obviously, as most of you may know, the 2 minute warning is the heart and soul of this podcast. But before we get to that, a little update on the DeMar Hamlin situation. He was, after a couple days, transferred from the hospital in Cincinnati to a hospital in Buffalo. He has since been released from that hospital in Buffalo and allowed to return home to his family, according to, I can't remember the name of the beat writer, but it's a Buffalo Bills beat writer, so it's a pretty reliable source for Buffalo Bills news. So I would assume that not only is DeMar, they said the report said not only is DeMar released from the hospital to go home, but he also may be able to rejoin the team. Not in the playing aspect, obviously, but just staying on the sidelines. He may be on the sidelines this weekend when the Bills take on the Dolphins. So that would be something to look out for. Obviously, we're all very appreciative of the fact that DeMar Hamlin was able to hopefully make a full recovery. We're obviously a little early on in the stages, but it seems like he's well on his way to making a full recovery. And so we all just lift him up and pray everything continues to go well for him. So, that being said, let's go ahead and get into our 2 minute warning. Again, our 2 minute warning is talking about, or not talking about, but going over the scores of each game in the NFL this past week. Week 18 out of 18. So, it won't be the last two, well, it might be the last 2 minute warning because there's so few games in the playoffs. But we'll see. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But let's go ahead and get the 2 minute warning for this week up and running. Share the timer with the screen. All right, and there we go. 2 minutes counting and go. So first off, we have the Chiefs demolishing the Raiders 31-13. Just put an absolute beat down on the Raiders. Little ring around the rosy play that was super fun for all involved, except for the Raiders. And some random lineman for the Broncos for some reason, but that's beside the point. Jaguars beat the Titans 20-16 to clinch the AFC South and move on to the playoffs as the 4 seed. Steelers beat the Browns 28-14 in a game that really didn't matter because of some games we'll talk about. We'll hit on a little bit later, but the Steelers did have an opportunity to make the playoffs this weekend. Too bad they didn't. Bengals beat the Ravens 27-16. Not a whole lot to talk about there. Bengals, I guess, 3 seed, but really nothing more to go on that game. Vikings beat the Bears 29-13. Patriots lose to the Bills 35-23 and get knocked out of the playoffs as a result of that. Dolphins beat the Jets 11-6, which in turn resulted in the Dolphins making the playoffs instead of the Patriots because they won. The Steelers were as eliminated as well. So, Falcons beat the Buccaneers 30-17. Really nothing to talk about there. I don't even think the Bucks played their starters. Panthers beat the Saints 10-7. Meaningless game. Texans beat the Colts 32-31. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but for a reason that's just hilarious. Cardinals lose to the Niners 38-13. Niners look like the best team in the NFC in my opinion. Commanders beat the Cowboys 26-6. Seahawks beat the Rams 19-16. Eagles beat the Giants 22-16. Broncos beat the Chargers 31-28. At least Russell Wilson went out on a dub. And the Lions beat the Packers 20-16, but because the Rams lost, it doesn't matter. And that'll do it for our 2-minute warning. Now let's go a little bit more in depth on some of those games and topics. Starting off with the toughest pill for me to swallow. The Lions have been eliminated from playoff contention. But at least they tried. Not, I guess, fault of their own because they didn't win earlier in the year. But this week specifically was no fault of theirs. They held up their end of the deal, beat the Packers, but because the Seahawks beat the Rams earlier in the night, the Seahawks clinched the playoffs as opposed to my beloved Detroit Lions and MCDC. Hope you guys make the playoffs next year, man, because you're doing it right up there in Detroit. Let me just say that. But Aaron, what do you take away from the Lions being this close from the playoffs this year? Obviously, the ship's got to be heading in the right direction. But what do you think they need to do in order to make the playoffs next year?
Their front half. You know, they obviously had a rough start to the season, but they picked up and finished strong. I think they got to find probably a more reliable quarterback and some more offensive weapons, but they've got a good running game and a solid defense. Yeah, I think they're definitely turning around. First winning season in how long? I mean, so yeah, they're definitely turning things around there, and it'll be exciting to see how things potentially change in that division with Aaron Rodgers possibly leaving or retiring. The Vikings kind of flexing this year, making the playoffs. The Bears with their number 1 overall pick. We'll see what they do with it. So it'll be an interesting offseason for that division.
Yeah, and we have a lot to talk about with that division, really specifically. Most of our talking points in this first half of the NFL segment is going to be talking about the NFC North, either one team or another. But I do agree. I think quarterback's the first place they start. It's going to be tough for them to get a good quarterback with the draft position they have because they were so good this year. Maybe look for them to trade up. Bears would be a team to look out for. Because obviously, if they believe in Justin Fields like they do, they may be willing to trade that pick for additional ones. So that'd be one team to look out for. Obviously, there's a lot of others who are ahead of the Lions in the draft this year. But I do agree that's probably their first step is locking down that quarterback position. I don't think Jared Goff is the long-term solution. Sure, he led the Rams to the Super Bowl a few years ago, but he didn't lead them anywhere. The defense did. So I don't think he's a reliable option. I think he's a solid backup in the NFL. I just don't see him being a reliable starting option for a team that actually has not only playoff aspirations, but championship aspirations, I would assume. So kind of staying in that division, moving on to the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers' situation up there. Obviously, them not making the playoffs this year is probably demoralizing for him. Well, maybe not. He doesn't really give a shit anymore. But probably not what he expected. I'm assuming he expected to make the playoffs this year. So what do you think? Do you think he looks to get out of Green Bay, whether it's retirement or trade. I could see it being more as a trade. Obviously, he has a lot left to give to the game of football. It's just whether he wants to or not. Um, what are some? We'll just ignore the retirement option for now, and just give me, I guess, your number one team uh, for who should trade for Aaron Rodgers, and what kind of improvements he could make to that squad. I guess.
I, if I'm being honest, I don't really see him leaving Green Bay. I think if he plays next season, it'll be in Green Bay. He said that he loves Green Bay. Now, whether that he's also said that he wants to finish his career as a Packer. So whether that's changed this year with some frustration with them still not getting him any weapons, who knows? I think it's more likely that he retires at this point than goes to another team.
Yeah, I mean, in fairness, I don't see him retiring, and I just want to talk stuff that's fun. So, I mean, I don't see the Packers trading him inside the division. Otherwise, I think Detroit would be a perfect spot for him. As we were just alluding to earlier, I think he could go to Detroit and turn that team into a legitimate playoff or a Super Bowl contender. But because the Packers will not trade in division because they're traditional like that, I could see the Colts being a good option. Other side of the other conference entirely, so they won't have to worry about Green Bay. Other than at worst once a year, really. So I think that would be a great team for him to go to. Of course, the Colts have a history the last few years of buying these old, broken down. Whether Aaron Rodgers is broken down or not is another story. But they have a history of picking up these old, broken down veterans like Philip Rivers and Matt Ryan over the last few years. And it would, as a Colt, if I was a Colts fan, I would really want them to go in a youth movement. I don't want as much as good as Aaron Rodgers is. If I was a Colts fan, I don't think I would want him on my team because it would only last a couple of seasons, and whether or not it would even be worth it in the first place is a whole nother story. When you have the fourth overall pick this year, I mean, you have a very good chance, considering that one of the teams above you is Chicago, who already has Justin Fields. You have a very good chance of getting either Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud. Both guys could extremely improve your quarterback position. And if I was a Colts fan, I don't think I would do that. But if you were just to plug Aaron Rodgers into any team, I think the Colts would be a great team to do it at. They have a great receiver in Michael Pittman. They have a great running back in Jonathan Taylor. Their offensive line is way better than it was when Andrew Luck played there. It's really the defense that's holding that team back, and I think Aaron Rodgers could come in there and make up for that lack of talent on the defensive side. So, I mean, obviously there's other places he could go. New York Jets would be a great place for him to go with the defense they have up there. He wouldn't have to do as much because the defense is going to hold everybody under 25 points anyways. So he puts up 3 touchdowns and a field goal, and they're right in the game, if not winning. So, I mean, there's tons of different options for him to go to. I just think Indianapolis or the Jets would probably be 2 of the best places for him. But
well, if you want to throw out hypotheticals, the Raiders are rumored to be going after Tom. So if they don't get Tom, Aaron could potentially go there, reunite with Devontae Adams. That'd be a sure way to probably keep Adams there.
Yeah.
Or if they do land Brady, he might go to the Bucs with at least a decent receiving core and a good defense there. Who knows if they'll trade him in conference?
Yeah.
But 2 teams has kind of popped in my head.
The Raiders was a team I never considered because they're in the Tom Brady, I guess you could call it sweepstakes. I mean, he's 45 fucking years old. Is there really a sweepstakes for a guy that old? I don't know.
He'll play for 5 more years.
Don't say that.
Kiss his kid on the lips for 30 more years.
Yeah, well, he can do that until he dies. But yeah, the Raiders was not a team I even thought of, but that would be a great spot for him as well, with obviously Josh Jacobs and Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfro, um, Darren Waller, and then the defensive unit they've been building over there for the last 5 years or so. So yeah, the Raiders are a great choice as well. I can't really think of any other teams outside of those four that we've named. Maybe the Niners, if the Niners want to get weird with it, but I don't know. There's probably other teams, but those seem like if not the top four picks, then four really good ideas. But moving on from that, and the last team we'll talk about in this division, I swear, Justin Fields, the Chicago Bears. They have the first overall pick in this next upcoming draft as a result of the Texans, which we'll talk about after this segment. The Texans gift wrapping the Bears the number one overall pick, seemingly. Uh, which do you think? Well, no, because that's an easy question to answer. Uh,
I'm all for easy questions.
which? Okay, fine. Do you think the Bears are more likely to trade Justin Fields or the number one overall pick?
Number one overall pick.
Yeah, obviously, no shit. Uh, yeah. So, but I have heard. I think Mark Tannenbaum or something like that said on ESPN today, which I got this from the Pat McAfee show, I might add, or maybe he didn't even say this today, but he said this at one point that if he was the Bears GM, which Tannenbaum used to be the Jets GM, I guess. He said that if he was the Bears GM, he would trade Justin Fields and draft Bryce Young because he has 2 extra years on that rookie contract, and he could get another first round pick and a third round pick for Justin Fields. And I was like, dude, you already have a quarterback that's learned the system. He's proven he's gonna continue to develop. I just don't see any reason you would trade Justin Fields, even if you have the number one overall pick with a chance to draft Bryce Young. Who's to say Bryce Young's going to even be as good as Justin Fields? We have no idea. Why not take what is certain, what is right in front of you, just run with Justin Fields. If you want to trade the first round pick for additional draft picks, then by all means, go ahead, get you a couple offensive linemen or maybe some other offensive tools like receiver or running back to assist with Justin Fields on that side of the ball. But why on God's green earth would you consider trading a guy who was arguably a top 5 quarterback this year if you throw in rushing stats with it? Probably not top 5, but
That's a little.
it's a little, yeah, maybe a little exaggerated. But would you say top 10?
I'd say top half of the league.
I would say arguably top 10.
Arguably, I wouldn't hate that.
Okay, arguably top 10 quarterback in the league this last year. I just don't see why you would move on from that for something that is completely uncertain. What do you think, Aaron? I just don't get it.
That is a move that makes sense business wise.
Sure.
Not necessarily football. What would I say? Success wise, I guess.
Yeah.
If your ultimate goal is to have the most cap space and have a young quarterback for cheap, then yeah, sure, that's a great deal. But Justin Fields is kind of like you said. He's proven that he's going to get better.
Mm-hmm.
They have a lot of problems to fix. They need a overhaul on their line.
Yeah.
They need to get in some offensive weapons clearly, and I don't know much about their defense, but it can't be great. So they've got a lot to fix, and I don't think trading away your one good piece is a way to take a step forward.
Right, yeah, it just seems like trading Justin Fields would result in them taking a step back and furthering the length of this rebuild they have going. And then to add with your defensive thing, just because I think it's funny to say, yeah, they're far removed from the Khalil Mack days. Let's just say that. But I guess moving on from that, moving on to the other worst team in the league, the Houston Texans screwed up in a way that tickles my peach. It was one of the funniest, most hilarious, just stupid decisions I've ever seen in my life. So, for those who don't know, the Houston Texans, all they had to do in order to lock up the number 1 pick, all they had to do was lose. They're good at that. They've done it a lot this year. They just had to lose. What do? They go out there, give a hell of a fight to a... Who the frick did they play? Who did they play?
Colts.
The Colts? Yeah, okay. They gave a heck of a fight to a Colts team that is also terrible. Came down to a Hail Mary, ladies and gentlemen. Quarterbacked by Davis Mills, might I add.
He's got heart.
He's got a neck, that's for sure.
Looks like Burke has heartburn right now.
I am coughing up, or I'm burping up a storm. But Davis frickin' Mills goes out there, chucks up a just prayer into the end zone, down 7 points. Down 7 points with no time left. Texans receiver, I don't even know who. It doesn't matter. Somebody on the Texans team catches the ball in the end zone. Touchdown, Houston. Obviously, I wasn't watching this dumpster fire of a game because it didn't matter. But I saw it.
It was a good game.
Apparently, yeah, that's fair. It was a great game, but it didn't matter. Didn't really mean shit. So I didn't watch. I saw a tweet around the time that the Hail Mary was completed by Nick Wright. He said that, okay, Houston, you proved you can win this game. Now take the knee on the 2-point conversion and take the first overall pick like a smart man. Well, Houston goes out there and they set up for a 2-point conversion. But my oh my, did they not kneel the ball? Oh no, sir. Oh no. No, the Texans, with the number 1 pick in the NFL draft on the line, goes out there on a 2-point conversion to win the freaking game and gift wrap the Bears that pick. They go out there and they convert. They get the 2 points. They win the freaking game. And now the Texans have the number 2 pick. So, shout out to them. I guess you won. Yay. Yay. Like, I don't know. I don't know what to say. Aaron, you have anything to add to that? I just thought that.
Well, this is, kind of what we just talked about with the Bears. It's a organizational view of the game versus the team's view of the game. Obviously, as an organization, you want that number 1 pick because it's just that much better.
Right.
But those players, they put on tape for every other team in the league because you don't know where you're going to end up next year necessarily.
Right.
And I'm sure both of you can attest for your sports competition days.
Hey, what are you trying to say? You're trying to say our baseball team sucked?
Well, if you let me finish.
Oh, we did.
If you have a chance to not be called the worst team in the league, you would 100% want to take that chance, right?
And we got that chance, and ECU was the worst team in the conference, so you suck at ECU.
I was not talking about your college baseball days specifically, but that's how you want to take it, fine. But yeah, these players, they don't want to go out and lose games. They don't care. It's the end of the season. They want to win. They don't want to be the worst team in the league.
Yeah.
And so, I could see why Lovie Smith went for the 2-point conversion.
Yeah.
But Also, his firing doesn't really make sense to me.
He got fired.
Yeah.
What do you mean it doesn't make sense? I'm confused.
I mean, you give him this dumpster fire of a team for 1 year, and
In that
and he's
context,
gone.
yeah. No, I don't get firing him after one season. Like you knew the team was gonna suck this year. I don't know what you expected. I honestly, the only thing that makes sense is they fired him because he won that last game.
That's the only reason, but it's dumb.
No, you're right. It's a stupid reason, but that's the only reason I can think of is that they were like, "Nah, you fucked us over. Here's your walking papers." I don't know, but moving on from the bottom feeders, moving up to the top feeders.
The Eagles.
Well, I was gonna say the Dolphins clinching the 7th seed. Kind of the top feeders.
Whatever you want. I was just, since we had that discussion yesterday.
Well, we'll get to that. It was today, wasn't it? Well, was it yesterday?
No, it was yesterday.
Okay. Yeah, because I think. Okay, yeah, we'll go with. No, let's start with this actually. Sean McVay may leave the Rams. What do you think?
So, is this his decision or the organization's decision? Because I've heard kind of conflicting reports.
I've also heard conflicting reports. All I know is that Sean McVay, the head coach for the not St. Louis, they don't go there anymore. They don't live in St. Louis anymore. Sean McVay, head coach of the Los Angeles Rams, is allowing his assistant coaches to interview for other positions, indicating that he may be leaving the Rams. I have heard it may be a mutual decision between both the Rams and Sean McVay, but there is no official statement one way or the other on that. But assuming Sean McVay leaves, what do you think will happen with that? Do you think he stays in the NFL? Do you think he takes a year off? Do you think he goes to like maybe the commentary booth? I've heard that may be an option.
I don't see. He loves football too much. I don't see him taking a year off. If he's not coaching, he'll probably be in a booth somewhere. But I think he's going to be coaching somewhere. In what capacity? Is it head coach, offensive coordinator? I'm not sure. I'm not sure why he or the Rams would want to leave.
That makes sense.
Just, I mean, the success they've had in the short period of time. Maybe there's some. I don't know. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me why you'd want to move on from a successful coach.
I actually
Could you see him going the college route?
No.
Not even if Michigan opened up?
Why Michigan?
Him and Harbaugh swap places.
That'd be funny.
Yeah.
That'd be funny. No, I can't see him going the college route. He would have went that earlier in his career if he wanted to coach college. If he really wanted to coach college, he would have started there and worked way up. But one thing I have heard as to maybe a reason why he may want to leave is Stafford may be retiring.
He doesn't want to put up with another Jared Goff.
Golly, these hiccups are killing me. Either that or I don't know. I mean, that's my guess is that he just doesn't want to. This is gonna be a fun 30 minutes. Yeah, my guess would be. Oh no, this is not good. This is not.
I got you.
Bro.
All right, so
you're not a fish 4 times, and
so
then go away.
Hold your breath for a couple minutes, Siege. I've got an off-topic question for you.
Okay.
Is Urban Meyer gonna open up a bar in Michigan and go be the head coach in Michigan?
If he did that, that would be sick. I would love that. I would go to a Michigan game just to go see him at the bar after the game.
Wolverine did, baby. Oh,
That would be awesome.
Testing,
I would love that.
testing.
that wasn't long enough. Just go till you pass out. We'll pick you up.
Okay. Stafford retired. Okay, yeah. So yeah, that would be my guess is that he doesn't want Sean McVay does not want to lift up another young quarterback. Maybe I don't know. He probably assumed that Stafford was going to be around for another like 5 years.
Aaron Rodgers.
Maybe or Baker Mayfield, baby. Baker. But yeah, I don't know. That would be my only guess as to why Sean McVay might be considering leaving is because Matt Stafford may be retiring. But there's no official statement on either of those reports. They're completely rumors
Speculation.
at this point. So, moving on from that, we'll save that for some other time. Yeah. I guess we'll just move on to our playoff predictions then. Everything else can kind of, I mean, it's not really a definitive timeline on it, so we can kind of push all that other stuff off. It's all off-season stuff, so we can push that off till a later date. So let's go ahead and pull up the NFL playoff bracket and give our predictions for the first round of the playoffs this year. Siege, feel free to jump in. Let's go ahead and start with whoops. There we go. Let's go ahead and start with the I guess the probably assuming to be the worst game of the weekend. Bills versus Dolphins. I have Bills winning this one pretty decidedly, but we'll start with you, Aaron. What do you think? Bills Dolphins game? Who do you have?
It all kind of comes down to is Tua playing? Do we know?
No, he's out officially. He's officially out. Tua's officially out.
Teddy Two Gloves?
They don't know who's starting yet between those two. They just know
Questionable.
it's not Tua.
I think they have at least a decent shot if it's Tua or not Tua, Teddy. If not, I don't see them doing much. Unfortunately,
Yeah,
I mean, I like Tyreek as a Chiefs fan, but yeah, it's tough draw for them getting the Bills.
Yeah, for sure. Had Tua been healthy those last like 4 games or whatever it was, I think they'd be a 5 seed at least right now. Maybe even fight the Bills for that division title, but because Tua's out, I don't see a snowball's chance in hell. Even if Teddy Bridgewater would be their only saving grace their saving grace from a Bills just manhandling, but I don't see the Bills dropping this game to a was it Skylar Thompson? Is that his name?
That sounds right.
Yeah, whoever the Dolphins' third string quarterback is, I don't see the Bills dropping that game, especially after the DeMar Hamlin situation. They seem to be in pretty good shape. So yeah, they're riding high on that. What do you see? Do you have any opinions on NFL playoffs? Just go ahead and get that.
I mean, you guys saw my predictions in the group chat. Give me the Jags to win it all, baby.
Okay, that's all you need.
I'm playing. No, I think I really think that the Bills and the 49ers take care of business. That honestly, the 2 best playoff games are going to be that Kansas City Bills and Philadelphia 49ers game.
Yeah.
Like the whole playoffs. I think those are going to be the 2 best games.
Yeah, assuming those are the 2 NFC championship or the 2 conference championship games, I would agree with you, because that'd be the only way those teams play each other respectively. But yeah, I guess we'll move over to that San Francisco Seahawks game. Everybody has Frisco winning, kind of the same with the Bills beating the Dolphins. Is there any way Seattle comes out of that game, Aaron, on top?
No.
Yeah, yeah. That's kind of what I think too. Really not much to talk about with that game, guys. Sorry.
I mean, the offense has struggled towards the latter half of the season, and with the might of the 49ers defense, I just don't see it.
No, honestly, the Seahawks are happy to be here, ladies and gentlemen. They the Lions should have made it. I think the Lions would have beat the Niners. I'm just saying, but because
no.
Okay, fair enough. No one out of those last. Well, do you think the Packers would have beat them?
I think if anybody would beat them of those three teams, it would have been the Packers.
I would agree.
The 49ers are the Aaron Rodgers killers, so.
That's true. That's that. I saw a meme today that said, like, man, the playoffs aren't going to be the same without the Niners eliminating Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. So, I guess we'll move on from that game, go to the Bengals, Ravens. Lamar is doubtful for this game right now. It's possible he'll play, but just not very likely. Due to that, I have to pick the Bengals. It's not even close, assuming Lamar doesn't play. If Lamar plays, I think the Bengals still win, but it's a heck of a game. What do you think, Aaron?
Yeah, I mean, Bengals, I think their offense is just too overpowered for the Ravens, especially with a not fully healthy Lamar to compete against. So, yeah, I mean, Bengals easily, I think.
Yeah, not much to discuss with that one either. Hopefully, with these next three, we get a little bit more interesting. Vikings, Giants. I actually have the Giants upsetting the Vikings in this one. I don't have a lot of faith in that Giants team. They've won a ton of games, which kind of is counterintuitive to my reason I picked TCU to win the Natty. But because the Vikings have been in so many close games, I don't think they're very good, dominant. Like, I don't think they're very dominant. I think the Giants' defense is. You said they were 11th. They were ranked 11th in the entire playoffs. I think that is a drastic underrating. I think the Giants' defense is top 3 in the NFC at least. Not in the NFL, but top 3 in the NFC playoffs. I should specify. I think the Giants are a top 3 defense in the NFC playoffs, which out of 7 teams may not seem like a lot, but when the 2 teams above you are the Cowboys and the Niners, in my opinion, Eagles fans and Aaron, I just think the Giants defense is going to be too much for Kirk Thuggins and the Vikings offense. Don't think the Vikings offense or defense is that good. I think Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley will be able to pretty much run through that Vikings defense. More Saquon than Daniel Jones. Unless Daniel Jones uses his legs. I think that's a better tool than his arm, in my opinion. But I think the Giants win, come out with an upset victory, move on to the second round of play. I guess it would be the Eagles, yeah. So, what do you think, Aaron? Vikings, Giants, who do you got?
I think what it comes down to, obviously, the weakness for the Giants is their offense. And the weakness for the Vikings is their defense.
Yeah.
So, who do we think kind of carries each team? I personally think it's going to be the Vikings offense that kind of
that's fair
pulls through, and they end up pulling out probably a close win over the Giants.
Yeah, I think again I have the Giants winning, but I think if the Vikings win, it will be fairly close game, hopefully. Or I could also honestly see the Vikings just blowing them the fuck out of the water. So who knows? But you did have Justin Jefferson as your MVP sleeper, dark horse, earlier this year. So not surprised you picked the Vikings in this one against a overachieving Giants team. Let's just say. Moving on to that, our last first round matchup in the AFC, we got Jaguars, Chargers. By odds, I still pick the upset, which was the Jaguars in this case. I just think that the Chargers have a history of losing close games at the end, and I think that will eventually come back to bite them in this game specifically. I think it'll be a close game all the way through. Both defenses are pretty bad, but both offenses are pretty good. So I do think the Jacksonville Jaguars defense is a little bit better than the Chargers defense. Chargers defense was puffed up to be a huge threat at the beginning of the year, and then they ended up getting a lot of injuries and just some underperforming as well. So I have the Jags defense are a little bit better than the Chargers, and I just Chargers are known to lose close games down the stretch. So I think that's going to end up happening in this game. But what do you think, Aaron? Chargers or Jags?
Man, it's a tough one. I mean, Chargers have a lot of injuries.
Yeah. Might I add, Mike Williams is also questionable for this weekend with a back issue. I'm not sure exactly what the injury is, but I do know he is it's a 50-50 chance whether Mike Williams plays or not. Assuming he doesn't, Jacksonville is definitely my favorite, but go
ahead. I have faith that the Chargers will win one game in the playoffs on the back of Justin Herbert.
But they didn't.
And I'm saying they will this time.
Okay.
They will definitely make the right decision on several fourth downs and not go for it when they shouldn't.
As Brandon Staley has a history of doing.
Yes. Continuing that trend.
Yes. Just like last year when the playoffs were on the line against the Raiders.
I think it becomes a shootout, and I think Herbert guts it out over Trevor Lawrence to give him heartbreak in his first playoffs.
I will say, if it comes down to a shootout, the Chargers win. I do agree with that, but I don't think it will. I think similar to Week 18, where the Jags beat the Titans, I think it'll come down to a big defensive play by the Jags down the stretch that end up sealing the game. But let's move on to our last first-round matchup, Buccaneers-Dallas. I have the GOAT Tom Brady overcoming the odds, 3-point odds, but they're still odds. I have the Buccaneers advancing to the second round, beating Dallas partially because it's Tom Brady, but also partially because it's the Dallas Cowboys and they love to lose in the first round. So why think anything different of them? I think they've only won 2 playoff games since Troy Aikman was quarterback for them. So I can definitely root against Brady. I can't pick against Brady in a matchup that's probably only going to be decided by one possession. But go ahead.
I think the Cowboys win, and I hate to say it, but I do. But if they lose, it's not because the Bucs are a better team. It's because the Cowboys love to do Cowboys things, and it'll be a Dak turnover late probably. That'll cost them, especially considering he's tied for the league in interceptions, even having missed 5 weeks. So, yeah, I think the Cowboys pull out a close one.
So not only do I think Dak will turn it over late, but I think he'll turn it over late with the lead, and Tom Brady will march down the field with 2 minutes left or less, and win the Bucs a playoff game this year after an atrocious season by his standards. Sub 500 record, but I do somehow think the Buccaneers will make it past the Dallas Cowboys and move on to the second round to play. I guess if I have the Giants winning, they would play the Niners. So, Mazel tov, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything else else to go over with this NFL playoff bracket? Obviously, the Chiefs and the Eagles are not playing this weekend. They both have byes as the number 1 seed. Whether you like it or not, Buffalo, the Chiefs have the 1 seed, so suck it. Obviously, due to unforeseen circumstances, and our hearts and prayers go out to Damar Hamlin and his family and all involved. But, yeah, I guess moving on from that, I don't really have anything else to say unless with the NFL, unless either of you have anything to add.
No, not really.
All right.
All right.
Go ahead, Siege.
Who was the linebacker? I think it was for the Packers. That
Quay Walker.
Zadarius Smith?
I don't know. The one that got in trouble.
Quay Walker.
Yeah.
Why
He
Zadarius
pushed the he pushed
the one that got ejected for pushing the trainer for the second time this year. He's been ejected for that. He got ejected against the. He got ejected against the Bills for it.
Really?
Why would he ever do that?
I don't know.
He doesn't like.
Only he can answer that.
He doesn't like medical attention. Maybe I don't know.
Doesn't make any sense at all. No. He, there was a player down, and there was like 4 trainers, and he just went over there and pushed him.
Well, in both. So the first one was like a tackle out of bounds, kind of, and the pile went over towards like the training staff, and the trainer was like kind of holding him up, keeping him from falling, and then kind of helped him up. And I guess he assumed that he was being pushed, so he pushed the trainer back.
Yeah,
and it was kind of
there was no question. He just
the trainer kind of like put his arm on Quay's arm and kind of little nudge to the side so he could get in there to help. But I mean, you got to know that it's not malicious intent, and he's just trying to get to the player. So I don't know what he's thinking in either case. You just can't have that.
I didn't even know that was a thing. So
that was bad.
That's on me.
But that's all I have to say.
Yeah. So I guess if that's all we have to say, I guess Aaron, do you want to move on to our players of the week?
Oh, yeah. Go ahead. You first.
All right. I guess if we're talking purely based on winning a football game, gotta give it to Davis Mills, man. I realize that Texans fans probably hate that man right now. But I mean, if you're just looking at the raw statistics and the fact that he went out there, he had the biggest testicles ever to have done what he just did. To just be like, oh yeah, we can have the number 1 pick, but screw that. Hail Mary, touchdown. Oh, we got the chance to win the game with a 2-point conversion. Hike. 2-point conversion. We win. He also 22 for 38, 298 passing yards on 3 passing touchdowns. Career game for Davis Mills. Career day for Davis Mills, despite losing the Texans the number 1 pick. So, forgive me, Texans fans. I know y'all probably wouldn't have him as your player of the week, but the dude balled out. Not much I can say. Aaron, you have a player of the week?
Let's go with, as much as it pains me to say it, we're going to go with a Broncos player. We're going to go Jerry Jeudy. Coming, balling out, 5 receptions, 154 yards. Really kind of helped usher that Broncos team towards maybe a new light to the start of the next season as what kind of should have been this season.
Yeah, yep. You really do like those receivers, huh?
Yeah, you know.
C, do you have any player of the week nominations, or you just want to move on?
No, I have nothing.
Okay, sounds good. Do you think we have time to talk about Correa? I mean, we're at hour 12 in, hour 13 in, so.
I mean, it's not a super long topic.
Yeah, fair enough. So Carlos Correa, uh, formerly for the Houston Astros, most prominently for the Houston Astros, last year played for the Minnesota Twins, had originally agreed to a deal with the New York Mets to play for them next season. Well, the deal fell through. Ended up signing a deal with the Twins, $200 million. How many years was it, Siege? Do you remember?
I'm not 100% sure,
I
to
can't
be
remember
honest.
how many years. I think it was like 7 or 9, maybe. I don't know. But $200 million contract with the Minnesota Twins remains in Minnesota for the foreseeable future. Obviously, a lot of things coming out about his health and his physical, what's it called, test thing up
Yep.
in
Evaluation.
evaluation. Sure.
Yeah, that's why the Giants didn't take him, and then I guess the Mets found something that they didn't like as well, and so they weren't really willing to negotiate with him on his deal. So he just had to, I guess, fall back to the Twins, and here we are.
Yep. So had a big deal with the Twins. Passed their medical evaluations and is seemingly fine for them. I don't know if it was just. I mean, he did play there last year, so maybe they just know what's going on. But anyways, Carlos Correa signs the Twins, not the Mets. Big news, especially if you're a Royals fan like me. Division's tough. Shit sucks. AL Central's getting better, and the Royals seem to stay the same, sitting in that pool of mediocrity that we have for the last half decade plus. So we'll wrap it up with our random sports fact of the week, and then we'll get out of here. Random sports fact of the week: only Greece and Australia have participated in all Olympic Games. Now, Greece obviously invented the Olympics, not a huge surprise there, but Australia was one that puzzled most, including our colleague here, Siege. Um, Anything to add, Siege? Any reasoning you wouldn't have expected? Australia?
I have a very yeah. Australia, there's no shot.
Well, I don't want to tell you. That's what it
When did
says.
the Olympics start? When did the Olympics start?
All right. Let me look it up. This is fun now.
I don't believe it.
When did
I
the
think you're being lied to.
Olympics start? 776 BC. Ugh.
Bro,
Seven.
Australia wasn't colonized until 1788.
Well, I don't know what to tell you, man. That's just what facts.net said.
Well, we're trusting the facts.net.
Hey, I was
Are you
told
from
that if it
like
if it
Austria?
ends in a .org or a .net, it's legitimate. Okay.
No.
I don't know.
Modern Olympics began in 1896, though. First modern Olympics were held in
Okay,
Athens,
then
Greece,
that makes sense.
1896.
Now I can believe it.
Yep, 1890s. Wow, they have a. The internet was around back then. That's crazy.
Did you just what? You thought the internet was around back then?
No, it says so. It's so you know how on like if you Google something, it would say like the publish date first.
Yeah.
So on this one, it just says it didn't say the publish date, but it says on April 6th, 1896. So I was just like, oh shit, the internet was around in 1896. April 6th to be exact, 1896.
Oh, I guess I believe it now that the modern Olympics didn't start till 1896 or whatever. So
Yeah, but yeah,
give it to them.
who would have thought? Put another shrimp on the barbie, mate.
Oh, Jesus.
Okay. All right. We're getting out of hand here.
All right. But yeah, that'll do it for episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the Swivel Chair Sports Podcast. I have been your host, Zach Circle Burkle, with my co-hosts Aaron and Siege. Say bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Good. That's good. We'll catch you guys next week. Make sure to like and subscribe if you made it this far in the video. If you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for listening to the whole thing. I apologize for anything you did not want to hear. But yeah, that's all we have for you. See you next time, guys. See ya.